In section 1, we'll talk about the introduction to IT. That is the meaning, the importance, and we'll talk about computer language, 0 and 1. We all talk different languages in humans, but in computers, there are no languages like English or Chinese. We'll talk 0 and 1. Then every section will have quizzes and handouts. Moving on to section 2, which is the computer components. We will slightly cover every single component of computer, such as hardware, software, operating systems, applications, networking, database, storage, virtualization and cloud, security, quiz handouts, and homework. Then starting with section 3, we are actually going to pick each one of these components and we're going to drill down. So starting with section 3, hardware, we'll talk about different type of computers. We'll install RAM and I will show you actually when I'll open up the computer, I'll show you where RAM is located and how you can replace it. Similarly, we'll do for CPU and its core and sockets. We'll install the CPU, then we'll talk about the 32 and 64-bit processing architecture, disks, hard disk, motherboard, other internal parts of computer, external components, hardware manufacturers, computer comparison with our human body, and then quiz handouts and homework. Moving on to section 4, which we'll talk about everything about the operating system, the types, the functions, the buildings, CLI and GUI operating system, computer boot process, and then we'll end with quiz handouts. Then moving to section 5, which will be the software and different type of software, system software, application software, freeware and shareware, open source software, BIOS and accessing the BIOS, program and services. So everything that you talk about, there are so many things you probably heard about software. Hey, is this a free software? We'll talk everything in this section. Then moving on to section 6, which is about networking, how computers communicate with each other, IP address, TCP/IP, gateway, subnet, MAC address, OSI layer. I'm sure you have heard of it, but I will take some time and explain you how it works and how important it is in computer networking. We'll talk about OSI and TCP/IP protocols and ports, types of network devices, how internet works. Moving on to section 7, which will be everything about database, RDBMS, which is a relational database management systems. What is SQL, top 5 RDBMS. Then section 8 comes the storage, computer storage introduction, how storage is calculated, types of storage, difference between RAM, swap, virtual memory, and cache, hard disk, SSD, solid state drive, RAID, top data storage vendors. Then moving to section 9, virtualization cloud, how virtualization works, basic virtualization terms, benefits, difference between cloud and virtualization, the technologies, VMware Workstation Player, Oracle VirtualBox installation, setting up virtual machines. We'll talk about how we could do the installation. We will actually do as a lab setup, and I will make you go through setting up these virtualization software and setting up virtual machine. Then coming down to security, section 10, another most important component of IT. We'll talk about different threats, breach, how we could secure operating systems, physical server applications, and so on. Then section 11 is about Windows operating system. You are getting into IT, you should know somewhat of Windows. We're not going to cover everything about Windows, of course, but a very few important topics of Windows, such as file systems, system resources, server managers, role and feature, Active Directory, and so on. Same thing we'll do with Linux. We will install Linux together, and we will access the Linux, how we could access file system, directory listing, system utility, and so on. And then the troubleshooting concept. So this is very important for anyone who is getting into IT in terms of how you could troubleshoot. And the last one is additional resources, which will cover some of the bonus lectures that I will add it to the end. So good luck, and I'll see you in the next lecture.